In section 4, we multiplied and divided our rational expressions. And when it comes to fractions, multiplying and dividing is probably the easier thing to do because we can just work straight across when we multiply and divide. Adding and subtracting takes a little bit more work because when we do those, we have to make sure that we get a common denominator. So before we get into the rational expressions, we're going to just review adding and subtracting fractions. And I'm going to kind of show you a different way to think about how we get a common denominator. So let's look at adding 3 over 4 plus 5 over 6. It doesn't work to just add straight across. Right? This is not going to be 8 over 10. We can't just add the number straight across. We have to have the same size denominator in order to add those pieces. So in the past, you've probably just thought to find the least common denominator, so the least common multiple between 4 and 6. So what's the smallest thing that both of those go into? That would be 12. So how do we get those each 12? Well, we need to multiply the 4 times the 3, but we can't just multiply 4 times 3. We have to multiply that whole fraction by 3 over 3, because 3 over 3 is really 1. So we're not changing the value of that fraction, because we're multiplying by 1. To get 6 to be a 12, we need to multiply by 2. We do that on top and bottom. So then we have 9 over 12 plus 10 over 12. Add those together, and we get 19 over 12. Now, let's find the common denominator in just a little bit of a different way. To do that, we're going to factor the denominator. So the factors of 4, the prime factors of it, would be 2 times 2. Right? We could rewrite 4 as 2 times 2. And 6 would factor into 2 times 3. Well, in this denominator we have 2 times 2, and here we only have 1, 2. So this denominator is missing a 2, so we would multiply in a 2 and a 2. And in our right, in the fraction on the right, we have a 3, and the fraction on the left is missing that in the denominator. So we would multiply in a 3. And now we have the same denominator in each. We have 3 times 2 times 2. We have 3 times 2 times 2. So those denominators match. So again, following through with this, we would have 9. So I want to look at finding the common denominator in just a little bit different way. That's going to apply more to how we'll find common denominators of rational expressions. And that has to do with factoring our denominator. Maybe you remember in junior high or even in Algebra 1, you did prime factorization, where we broke a number down into its prime factors. If we did that with 4 and 6, these are pretty simple examples. 4 breaks down into just 2 times 2, and 6 breaks down into 2 times 3. So now to find the common denominators, we're going to compare the factors in each of them. In the one on the left, we have 2 factors of 2, but on the right, we only have 1 factor of 2. So we need to multiply that factor in to help make our denominators match. So multiply by 2 over 2. And in our denominator on the right, we have a 3, which is missing as a factor on the left. So we would multiply in a factor of a 3. And so now we have 2 denominators that match. We have a 3, a 2, and a 2. And on this side, we have a 3, a 2, and a 2. And then we would just go ahead with our addition from there. So 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 2 times 2 is 12, 5 times 2 is 10, 2 times 3 times 2 is 12, and that gets us the same result of 19 over 12. But with this different idea of how to find a common denominator, that's going to apply to our rational expressions just a little bit better. So let's look at just a couple more quick examples of adding fractions. Here we have 5 plus 11 over 7. We don't have a denominator in that first one, so this is really 5 over 1, right? On the right, our denominator is a 7 times 1, so that 1 is good. We don't have to worry about a 1 as a factor. So on the left, we're just missing the 7, so multiply top and bottom by 7. And it gets us 35 over 7 plus 11 over 7, and our sum is 46 over 7. And so just one last example, we have 5/9 plus 1/6. Let's find our common denominator by factoring again. So 9 would factor into 3 times 3. 6 factors into 2 times 3. So from this one we have 2 3's. Over here we only have 1, so we're missing a 3. So we're going to multiply that factor into the top and the bottom. From the right we have a 2, which we're missing in our denominator on the left, so we're going to multiply in a factor of a 2 on top and bottom. So that gets us to 2 times 5, so 10 over 2 times 3 times 3. That's going to be 18. Plus 1 times 3 is 3 over 2 times 3 times 3, 18. So this gets us to 13 over 18.